When you have to shoot, don't talk.
All right, thanks for joining us today on the Trap House Podcast. We have a new episode with Tom Morelock's our guest today. Me and Charlie sit down and talk to him. He's got a new DVD out that I helped do some editing. It's pretty cool. It's all Trapline cam, night camera and day camera footage, you know. You can learn a lot from the trail cams. So we're going to talk to Tom about those things. Also, talk a little bit about the convention. Just want to mention that the NTA is coming up. It's in Spencer, Iowa. Hopefully we can see everyone there. So stop by the booth and say hi. And yeah. So last but not least, we got to give it up to the sponsors. We have Jeff Haggerty of J3 Outdoors. His website is j3o.com. He's the maker of the Hags bracket. He's got a multi-lock, universal type lock for almost anything you could imagine. Either smooth rod, rebar, wire, cable, different size chains, the whole deal. I really like that lock. It's impressive. It's lightweight, but heavy duty. So, yeah, check them out, j3o.com. Also, Top Lot Stretcher Company. They make an awesome adjustable stretcher. I've said it numerous times. Check out their website. It's toplotstretcherco.com. And they have trapping supplies as well. Last but not least, we also have Hoosier Trapper Supply, home of the Top Dog Predator Bait and Jet Fuel Predator Lure. We also have everything you need out there on the trap line. Tools, equipment, gear, books, DVDs, you name it. It's all on HoosierTrapperSupply.com. Starter packages. Yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. So let's get to that interview with Tom, and hopefully we'll see you at the convention. Thanks. All right, we got another podcast here. We got Tom Morelock with us today. You might have heard him on a previous episode. Of course, Charlie's always here.
All right, I'm always here.
But today we're going to talk about trapping, and Tom's got a new DVD out called Trapline Trail Cams, and I had the honor of helping with editing. So we're going to dive into that. So, Tom, what can you tell us about this? What was your idea behind it to get this thing going?
Well, originally I didn't even actually have an idea to make a DVD. Just like a lot of other trappers, you know, I really wanted to learn a lot more about what goes on my trap line. So I bought me some trail cameras and started watching them. And long story short, after a while, I started amassing quite a bit of videos, and that's where the idea of maybe I need to make a DVD and share this with everybody. And that's kind of how I got into it. So. So it, you know, definitely opens your eyes to a lot of things that an awful lot of people would never believe unless they see it themselves. And it's a 2 DVD set. The first one's mostly beaver, second one's mostly coyote, but it's got other stuff thrown in there. A lot of the stuff on the beaver, because I trap beaver so much, weren't necessarily surprises. A lot of it was just verifying some of the theories that I had that were in fact true. But the coyotes, you know, some surprises there. There's some surprises on the beaver stuff too, and I did change my strategies a little bit on the beaver.
Yeah.
So,
well, going through all the video and editing, you definitely picked up some interesting footage. You know, a lot of guys don't see or even hear. I like hearing the audio, how some of these animals talk. You know,
yeah,
and
like
how they
noise the beaver made there in that one.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like crying baby on that one.
Yeah. Well, see, I've heard that before in person, not just in that video. I've been out, you know, checking traps and had beaver swim around making that noise, and you know, they're usually not happy. Right. So I, you know, so if you hear that noise, it's probably not a good thing. But I've never been attacked by. Well, actually, I did have one come up a long time ago, climb up on the bank, walk up to me, and hiss at me.
Yeah.
One time, he didn't actually try to bite me. But
was he in a trap or just?
No, he was free.
Yeah.
He ignored
Really?
the trap. Well, see, that's something I've learned. That's something the video I've really picked up on is it really amazed me how much they're interested in human activity. Now, I knew that was true with coyotes, even though a lot of people won't believe you when you say that, because you've probably seen it over the years too, like when you're out checking your traps in the snow or whatever, you find coyote tracks following your tracks in the snow and stuff like that. So I knew they're interested in humans, but to see these beaver actually on the video, very interested in everything that I've been doing there. I mean, you can't put nothing there. You put a snare, a stick, anything that wasn't there before, they're aware of it. They're not necessarily spooked, but they're aware of it, and they check it out, see what it is, So, that kind of, and then like I use the long chain method a lot, and a lot of times I anchor them up high on the bank so I can climb up and down the bank, and they'll actually walk up and down the bank, check all that out, and everything. It's like I said, they're not afraid of it, but they really want to know what you were up to while you were there, And then they, of course, they work the set too, but it dispels a lot of things in here. I hear people say things like, there's an awful lot of stuff on the internet that leads people astray, as you know. Yeah, but like, well, when you set a caster mount set, that pan needs to be so many inches off to the back. It needs to be off to the side. They don't care where that is. That piece of advice. Now that I've watched probably 200 beaver work caster mount sets, that makes no difference whatsoever, because they're not necessarily going to come in there where you think they're going to come in there. So 2 inches over here or 2 inches over there is irrelevant, because he might be 2 feet over there when he comes in, you see. So you're not, but I have developed, and I was doing this before the video, but I had developed ways where I target the back foot, which is at some of those things you've seen there where I have it on the side of the tree and they climb on the tree. That does narrow down where their feet are going to be. And and it helps out a lot. Cause
so they got to stand and stretch out.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
So I always knew that I'd been using that set to get them to stretch out. But what I didn't know until I seen it on the video is they actually almost literally want to touch their nose on that lure. They got to get their nose right there within like an 1/8 inch of that lure, and so you can take advantage of that, because now I can predict where their nose is. If I can predict where their nose is, I got a lot better chance of targeting that feet. Now it's still, some beaver come in different sizes, so you still miss a lot. But like, I'd probably, from every beaver, not every trap you set, but every beaver that you catch in a trap, you probably had 5 or 10 visits before one of them actually hit the pan. Because if it's a traditional, what I call a flat style caster mount, which is what most people make, where it's on like a flat piece of ground and a beaver can come anywhere he wants. They'll climb up on the bank all the way around, work it from the backside, and then they go off head first, hit your trap and snap it off. I actually seen one that attacked me, or not attacked me, but threatened me, actually did that. I was standing 5 feet away from one when this is like 30 years ago, where he did that. He come up after he got done hissing at me. He walked over to the caster mound from the bank, from the land side, slid into the water and snapped off the trap. Then I reset it and he come back. He actually come back and got in the trap. Yeah. But yeah, so I'd already seen some of that stuff, but now what I do, because of all those visits, I've been putting 2 traps down there, even if it's on a drowner, which I don't like to use drowners, but I do use them in subdivisions and stuff, because it just increases the likelihood that he's going to hit one of them, and still not 100%. They still come back and forth over and miss them. But another thing that I always thought, you get a beaver and he has a trap snap off on him or pinches his foot, that you're never ever going to have him get close there again, but that's not true. They just come right back, and sometimes immediately, and they're mad, trying to figure out what it was that bit them. So it's not they don't necessarily automatically become trap shy just because they had that trap bite them, because they don't know what it was. And I think they probably associate it, but they think it's another beaver, but they couldn't figure out where he was at.
So, Tom, when you're trapping beavers and they kind of freak out, and then things just go stale, and you're either chasing them around on a bigger pond or lake, or What's your conclusion on that then?
Well, what I found is usually they just get bored with that particular lure, and then you can swap to another lure, and a lot of times get them to come back. Now, at some point, sometimes they do just decide not to work the lure anymore, or what I run into a lot is they just leave. They just decide, pack up and leave. So because you can go there and you can tear holes in the dam, you can set traps in the den or whatever, nothing ever happens. They were there, but they left.
Your trail cam just goes blank from there?
Yeah, you don't see anything on the trail cam, nothing's happening.
So have you ever run into where they just like hold up in their lodge or den for extended periods of time?
I did do that. I had one like that once a few years ago in Indianapolis, and the problem with him was, and this is why I don't trap the dens unless I have to, and a lot of guys don't, is that he wouldn't work any of the caster mounts. Someone else had been there before I was there. I don't know what all they did. But in order to get to the den, I had to crawl around on top of it. And that kept spooking him. So what I did is I put 330s in the den entrances, and there's a pond, so I just checked it with binoculars from the other side of the creek for about 2 or 3 days. And finally, he came out and got caught because I wasn't over there around the den, and he finally felt comfortable to come back out. Or they'll move too, like on ditches. One of the things I look for, if it's got a header tile on it, they'll leave the main den and move into that header tile because it's like a satellite den. I've also, and the camera confirmed this, me and my friend Tom Larson have talked about this a lot. They'll move from this area here on the ditch and maybe go 2 or 3 miles somewhere else for a while, even a week or so or whatever, and then maybe come back and forth. Well, I had a camera out, and I caught a beaver, and he went off and he drowned. And then another beaver come when the trap wasn't there. And you know how they always get fight and stuff. Well, this one had a notch out of his tail, a distinctive notch in his tail I could see on the camera. And a mile or two downstream in what I thought was a different colony, I caught that beaver, the one with the notch in his tail. So I know he was going back and forth. So I know they do that kind of stuff.
Right.
But some of the really bizarre stuff, though, like a beaver snare that I had hanging up there, muskrat swims up, grabs the snare lock, pulls it down, swims on by. Like, what was that all about?
Right. I mean, without the camera, you would have assumed that a beaver pushed it down or whatever.
And on to the coyotes, there's a lot of stuff that people think about coyotes, but they really, same thing, that coyote doesn't care that your trap pan is 8 inches back and 2 inches to the left or whatever. He doesn't care about that. They come in from the backside, upwind, downwind. I got some, roll on it and accidentally hit the trap by accident because they're rolling over and their foot snaps into the trap. They're also not afraid of other animals from what I've seen. Other coyotes being caught in a trap. A lot of them stay right there with the other coyote, or the one with the jet fuel there, where he comes and digs out the hole while the other coyote's sitting there in a trap right next to him. So, and the thing we always. You and I, talk about this, and everybody thinks they got a dug-up trap and it's flipped upside down. They got this, incredibly intelligent coyote that's doing this, and all this is a coon.
It's a raccoon.
And
I'm going to call them wizard coyotes.
Yeah, and I got footage of that, and like actually, here's where someone might conclude that a coyote did that. I showed up at the set, traps laying over off to the side. There's coon tracks all around. But there's also a set of coyote tracks there. I'm pretty good at tracking stuff, so I could tell that the coyote was there. It was the last animal there, so I actually knew he probably didn't do it. But I confirmed that with the camera. Sure enough, coon was there first. He pulled the trap out, screwed around with it, laid it over here, and the coyote come along. And I had another one similar. It's not on the video because it really wasn't that interesting. But I go up to a set. Now this is on grass, so I couldn't really read any sign very good. Trap snapped off, holes just all reamed out, coyote tracks all around the set. Well, most people would conclude coyote snapped off the trap, dug out the hole. That's not what happened. A deer got there first, snapped off the trap, then the coyote come and dug the hole out.
Yeah.
So you can easily go off of these guys that haven't been trapping that long, can go off on the wrong tangent. And then it's kind of like a math problem. You got one of the numbers in the wrong place, and they never do come up with the right answer.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, where the camera really, definitely shows you a lot of stuff like that.
I always say, snow's the great humbler because you realizing what's walking by and not sniffing or missing or whatever. But the trail cams snow times 10.
Because they don't lie.
We've got a guy, I've mentioned him in the past. I mean, he'll tell you if he's missed a coyote, he'll tell you the sex of the coyote, what color it was, whether it was the alpha or whatever, just by missing it with no trail camera. So I mean,
you're lying to yourself.
I mean, you're creating so many problems in your head by jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, you just can't jump to conclusions. You got to have evidence that you can prove to really come to that kind of conclusion.
Right.
But speaking of that kind of reminds me of a joke I do sometimes. I'm checking beaver traps with somebody that hasn't been trapping that long. I find a castor mound. I'll pick it up, some of it up, and I'll smell it, and go, yeah, it's female, 2 years old, it's had 2 litters by the smell.
Yeah.
And they just look at me funny, but that's a joke though that I like to do.
They're either going to look at you.
Can appreciate that.
Yeah, only a trapper can appreciate.
They'll only look at you and go, "Man, he's crazier than hell," or they're going to
he's
say,
really good. Yeah,
he's awesome. He knows it
or
all.
the other. Yeah, but yeah, so it'll definitely open your eyes to a lot of things that you wouldn't believe. Unless you see it happen. Like I said, the coons. There's one in there. Coon comes up there, actually pulls the trap out of the bed by the pan of the trap, flips it out. And they don't know there's a trap there. They just what usually gets them doing that is peat moss, cover holes, or loose dirt, or something that's different than the ground.
Even wax dirt, anything different. Yeah.
They start feeling around in there. And they find this metal object, and they pull it out, and this isn't anything good to eat. And sometimes they accidentally step on it and get caught, But and they usually come in groups. There's usually 2 or 3 or 4 of them, or whatever. They bumble all over the place, and that's another thing that even with the coyotes, it's hard to believe so many animals come to the set. There's just something I did notice. I didn't notice this until after you gave me the edited version, because I always watch just a clip, one clip and then another clip or whatever. I got to watch it all together,
sequenced, yeah.
And it kind of clicked in my head. It was in my head, sort of, but didn't click till I watched it. Is that when you got coyotes coming up to those sets, they spend a lot of time, 10 to 20 feet around that set, scratching and sniffing and peeing and pooping, and that whole area is saturated.
Yeah.
Within a few days after you've had a bunch of coyotes there, which actually is a real good compliment to like the lures of your guys that I've used and the lures that Jim Tate makes or whatever. You got all that attraction, but they're still coming over here to this spot 10 or 20 feet away to investigate that, even though they got all this other stuff that smell.
Right.
So that's a real testament to the lures you make. You know? So
that's another thing when you mention that, guys will usually it's a newer trapper and they're just not catching, but they're having activity. They're having tracks, or they're having usually tracks in
semi visits, but no.
Yeah, and that's real common.
Right, a non-committal coyote.
They'll eventually come back. Like they got the one on there. One of the few that I can positively identify, because it's a cripple. It's a crippled coyote, and had 2 sets, or 2 locations, not 2 sets, but 2 locations about 100 yards apart on this property, and I had cameras on both of them this particular year. And this female coyote is crippled. When she hit both of those locations every night for like 5 days in a row before she finally just happened to step on one of them. Every night, until she finally just screwed up.
Yeah. Mark Steck says that coyotes were born afraid, which is true. Afraid/wary, but they're all animals are curious.
Oh yeah,
they have a level
curious.
Of curiosity, and if you miss him, he's coming back.
Yeah.
It's just in their nature, and they all generally have the same habits and the same predictabilities to them.
Yeah, to an
However,
extent, yeah.
there is the variables.
Individuals,
that,
yeah. But something I did not see, and there's not this many on the video, obviously, but I probably watched in 3 years' time about 100 coyotes work sets. And a lot of them dig at the set, and they look like they're scratching right where the trap is, but I've never seen a video of one of them actually pulling the trap out of the bed. Never seen that.
You hear that, guys?
They scratch at the bed, but I've never seen them actually hook onto it and move it out of the bed.
Yeah.
Never seen that. Now, I ain't saying it doesn't happen. I just hadn't seen it in any of those.
Right.
But, yeah, so, like I said, they'll eventually come back. I mean, now, if you're doing a nuisance job or something, that's a little bit different. You're going to have to throw some stuff in there. Actually, speaking of that, there's a set in there. I didn't explain it on the video, but I call it the beaver foot set. Now, this might not be legal in every state, but it's okay in Indiana. You get one of those non-committal ones like that. I go out, and it's usually after you've caught some. Go out to beyond the edge of the catch circle and make just a big dirt hole, but no lure, no urine or nothing. Throw a big chunk of beaver meat in the hole, and then I take the front feet of beaver and throw them 4 or 5 feet out around, just scatter them around out there. That's something I learned from watching, the nuisance beaver that I catch. I throw on my gut pile unskinned, and I have cameras on them and stuff. One of the things this is how I got the idea. When they come up to an unskinned beaver that's got feet on it, first thing they do is eat the front feet. They're crunching them front feet off of those beaver.
Really?
Yeah, so that's why I got the idea. So I started saving beaver feet. And you'll see there's 2 videos. They're I didn't draw attention to them in the video, but where I done that, because I had years before the video, I developed that idea to catch a coyote that I couldn't catch, and it worked. So I started using it for fur and stuff occasionally. And so what they do is they'll come up, they'll eat the feet. I like the front feet because they're dark and they're small, and you can lay them on top of the ground and a bird or something, and they're not going to see them. But the coyotes find them. Well, they'll come up there, they'll munch all them feet. And if you listen to the sound like you're talking about, you'll hear him going, well, that's a beaver foot he's munching on. Mm-hmm. And then they'll go up, and then first one, he actually steals the bait out of the hole. Gets up there, sticks his nose in there, rips it out, runs over here 5 feet away or whatever, chomps it down. And then he's all cocky and comes up to the set, bam, gets caught in the trap. but there's another one that's in the snow, and you can actually see that better. You'll see the coyote pick up a little dark object off the ground and eat it. That's a beaver foot. And then that camera didn't catch the coyote getting caught, but the next frame he's in the trap. Yeah, so that's something I've experimented with it. Like I said, I don't know. You can't necessarily do it in every state. I don't know what your laws are, but we're okay here.
Generally, it's size of bait and whether it can be exposed or not.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it comes down to. Yeah. So,
and you can cover it up if you worry. You can always because he doesn't have to see it; he'll smell it. He'll find that beaver foot laying out there. Speaking of the bait, though, and I first noticed this on the gut pile in the backyard. Even though those coyotes should be not wary of me at all, because I'm the sugar daddy that throws all the beaver carcasses out there all the time. Man, they're really wary around the gut pile. Really spooky.
Is it because they're concerned about what's coming in?
That's what I think. I think because they know that they're not the only ones hitting that gut pile, but they're kind of like that with the beaver meat in the hole too. Now they don't do that with like Top Dog or any commercial bait that I've used. They're not like that with that, but just plain beaver meat. They're a little bit spooky of that too. And I think it's just because they think this belongs to somebody else, and I got to be careful. I think. I don't know.
It's one-dimensional. There's not that layers of smell to it, and maybe it's something that they've recognized from the past. That's a odd.
But they're really paranoid around the gut pile, which on most of a standard coyote set, they're way more relaxed than I would have thought most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're not near as spooky most of the time as what you would actually think they would be.
So what do you attribute all that activity around the set prior to them getting caught, or in the cases of sometimes not getting caught?
I think if there's not been any coyotes caught there, they're actually smelling checking out what I was doing there. They're smelling where I kneeled on the ground, or I'm sure you guys do this sometimes. You go to make your dirt hole set and it's too wet, so you go over here and dig some dirt out over here and stuff like that. They investigate all that stuff. They want to know what's going on there. And I think they're doing a lot of that. And then why they decide they want to, maybe they're protesting your presence by peeing all over the place. I don't know.
Marking the territory. Maybe.
Yeah, you're in my territory. I'm going to pee on it. I've had beaver do that. I've had beaver protest my presence there. And I've actually I use that sometimes. If I get one doing that, I set a trap there and catch him. Show him. It does work as long as
show him who's boss.
Yeah, it does work if you got the right circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, they will definitely do that. Beaver will. They'll definitely protest you being there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the coyotes are actually doing that or not, but well, they don't like coons. You get a coon in a trap. Of course, I haven't got any coons in a trap where there's a gang of coyotes, just one-on-one. They don't kill that coon. They don't mess with him. They don't like that.
Wonder why. And that's common. I mean, you always hear a coon doesn't make very good bait. It's the last thing that any coyote would ever eat if it was on a gut pile.
But they won't attack.
Yeah,
they won't attack that coon in the trap.
I should tell you why we shouldn't probably be trying to eat those.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not eating coon.
And they have absolutely. They look at possums like they're not even a living being almost. Possum. Don't even hardly sniff at it or anything.
Don't acknowledge it.
Yeah, they just kind of look at
it. So I wonder why out west they occasionally get into porcupines. You would think that
I don't know. I don't know on the porcupines since we don't have them. I don't know.
Yeah, but that, and for those of you that are Western trappers or listening to this, you might leave it in the comments. Does that happen often where a coyote gets into a porcupine, or do they tend to leave them alone? I don't know.
I don't know.
A domestic dog, they don't learn. They
just keep doing it.
Yeah,
but also I don't have a lot of video of it, but I have also got videos of otters and the same thing. Just like the beaver, man, they're real interested in everything that I was doing there, all over the place where I was messing around. And so far, it's a very small amount, so I can't really draw a conclusion, but so far, I've not seen any otter show any interest in beaver caster. Now, they might be right where my trap is because I was messing around there, but they don't sniff the caster on the side of a tree or on a caster mountain. I haven't seen them do that. Mm-hmm. But I did have one. I was in a big swamp that had otter, and I wanted to avoid them. I thought, well, I'll make a beaver set with food lure and green limbs. That won't catch any otter. Well, I didn't catch the otter. But, man, that otter was all over that lure, all over that food lure. Mm-hmm. How I didn't catch him, I don't know. But so I thought, that idea didn't work.
Yeah. That's interesting because, beaver casters obviously one of the most universul attractions.
But I haven't, mink usually just run right past it, too.
Yeah.
They just hop right on by and don't even slow down.
Yeah. Huh.
But muskrats, squirrels, mice, they're all interested in it.
Yeah.
Like I've had it where I put it on the, that like tree set that I make. I've had it on the side of the tree, and squirrels, start climbing down the tree head first to come down and smell it, stuff like that.
One thing about your video, Tom, is that it's multi-species. It's not.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of everything in there. Like I said, it's primary beaver and coyote because I was trapping beavers and coyotes. The other stuff is just like there's several coons in there, but they're all in coyote sets. Except there's some cage trap coons, but other than that, they're just coons that blundered into coyote sets. And over the years, I always catch a lot of coons. I've always used offset traps, and I always catch a lot of coons by the back foot in canine sets. And I always thought, well, what are they working the set different? Why are they always by the back foot? Mm-hmm. Well, the reason now I know why is because if they get caught by the front foot, about 75% of the time they get out.
Okay.
With an offset trap. They don't stay there for long. They're out of there.
See, now we've caught a lot of coons by the front foot in an offset.
I've caught them, but most of the ones on the video get away.
Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting.
Now the back foot, they're usually there.
Right.
And and some of the front feet too.
Right.
So
did you learn anything about location?
No,
because you're already on location.
Yeah, already on location. So. Yeah. I mean, like the one place there, it's like one of the first videos on the coyote part, where I was there for 3 years. Can't trap it anymore now. It's been developed. But I caught 24 coyotes there, like 8 or 9 each year, whatever comes out to 24. And it's like, obviously this was the right spot because it's like almost every day there's something there.
Right.
Best I ever did though was actually in Indianapolis. And I didn't have this before game cameras, but I had a job in Indianapolis. This lady had a little 20 acres of land around. This is like 75th and Allisonville, not too far from Castleton Mall. On a little 20-acre lot back there, I caught 12 coyotes in her backyard. And to look at it, you would think, I don't know why there'd be. This is more. I would expect to see gray fox here, but not coyotes.
Right.
Because it's kind of wooded, not really heavily wooded, but brushy wooded.
Well, they were obviously coming through there.
Yeah, they were coming through there. But yeah, trying to think of some of the other interesting things. I haven't watched it for a while, so.
Tell us make me feel good and tell me the story about the jet fuel.
Well, you guys got to see this. And I'm not lying here, Justin. I really did do very well on jet fuel.
Yeah,
that's
season. What you told me.
That's a really top-notch lure. So yeah, but had this set. You'll get to see it if you watch the video. So in the first part of the video, a coyote comes along, and in this video they actually bust the camera, but they're not afraid of. I mean, they stare right at it, like right at the camera, but because it's only 5 feet away. So they come over there, and the first one, he kind of disappears temporarily out of the scene to the left. Then his partner comes in. He comes right up there. Bam! He's caught in the trap. Then the camera kicks off, and when it kicks back on again, that first coyote's back in the scene. And he's up here sniffing around, trying to figure out what's going on with this coyote here. Eventually, he goes, the heck with you. I need to dig this jet fuel out. So he sits there with his trap, or the one that's in the trap. That trap is like 6 inches from the other coyote's face while he's digging out the lure out of this hole. You don't care that other, and he was right.
Too bad
there.
for you, buddy.
Yeah, I see you. I can get good. Now that you're caught, I'm going to eat this because you can't get to it. But no, yeah, and there's another one it's a different lure, but where there's a coon in a trap. Coyote comes up there. Man, he just really wants that lure, but that stupid coon just won't move out of the way, So he's diving in there and digging at it, and circling around, digging at it, and the coon just snarls at him and jumps back and stuff like that. So that's you'd never see that. You never know that. You would never know any of that stuff's going on if you didn't see it.
Right.
And then I had a beaver, or actually it was an otter, got caught in a beaver snare, and then the beaver comes a little while later and attacks the otter.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It's like
that was interesting footage.
So yeah, you'll see that kind of stuff on there. I'm trying to think of what else, but
well, you don't want to tell all of them.
You don't want to tell all, but yeah, you guys need to watch it. But
I will say, since it's 4th of July weekend, I did enjoy the clip of the beaver swimming around, and you can see fireworks going off in the background. And he's just doing his thing.
That was one of those things where he was investigating what I was doing, and you can see the reflection of the fireworks go bam, boom, and you can see the reflection in the water and hear the fireworks going off, and he's just like, I don't care.
Not even scared at all.
Not any attention to it.
Yeah.
Well, you hear about like domestic animals, dogs have a problem with that, and
you
wonder how wild
beaver didn't, but
wild game if they would hole up in the den or whatnot. But that one seemed unaffected.
Yeah, that one wasn't not affected at all.
Farmers use those propane boomer guns, whatever, in their fields that go off every few 30 seconds or whatever, Sound like a shotgun going off to keep birds out of the sweet corn.
Yeah, they do scare birds. That stuff does scare birds.
Yeah. And I'm assuming on that it would be like anything else. If it just was continuous,
they just get used to it.
They would get used to it.
Like a train going down the road or whatever. Train whistle blowing. You're probably true.
Of course, on a sweet corn patch, it's probably only 7 to 14 day window max. So maybe they don't get used to it in that time frame as much. I don't know.
That's true. But I think they get used to a lot of human activity and at least in the east. Now I don't know. Some of them remote areas out in the west, that's a different world. But here where we live, I don't think there's hardly a day goes by that they don't encounter some kind of human scent or activity.
Right.
So they're not necessarily alarmed. What I tell people is that there's two kinds of human scent, because they'll say, well, what about when I'm in a deer stand and a coyote comes along and he winds me and he's out of there? I said, well, there's two kinds of scent. There's live human scent where you're still there, and there's scent that was where you used to be there, and they definitely know the difference.
They say that timing that a dog uses, that internal clock, a lot of times is based on scent and how it dissipates, and they know that when that scent dissipates to a certain point, that indicates a time in their internal clock. So I think there's probably
the first clue I had to that is a buddy of mine is a big coon hunter, and I was out coon hunting with him one time with dogs, and they treed immediately, right? And then they quit treeing, and then they started running a track, and they ran off into the woods, and they eventually treed 2 coons. So I asked him, hey, what was that all about? And he said, well, what happened was they treed on a den tree, but the track was so hot that they thought that the coon was still there, but it only took a few minutes. It started to cool off, and they realized they had run it backwards and then ran the other way and treed the coon. I mean, that's how sensitive their nose is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to fool that, a nose like that.
Right. I mean, some hunting dogs, they just put it on a platform or put it on top of their dog box, drive down the road, and if they pick up the scent just like that, and then they turn their dogs out. So I mean that's an incredible sense of smell.
Yeah. Well, I seen that with one of my dogs, sort of. I had a little dog. He's a real little, he's only size of a house cat, standing by a field, and he was a very aggressive dog, but a bean field, and about probably 100 yards out, I seen this coyote. He's walking around. Now he's downwind of us. The dog can't see him because he's too short. That coyote's downwind. Eventually, finally, over a period of time, works to the point where he's upwind of us. That dog caught that scent immediately. When he got upwind, when it blew it to him, he starts looking all around, trying to figure out where that came from.
Yeah.
So obviously, he knew that coyote was out there. He didn't see him, but he knew he was out there. He could smell him.
Yeah.
So I pay attention to that stuff.
Sure.
Maybe other people don't, but I always pay attention to those things and try to apply it to my trapping. How can I use that information when I'm trapping?
Right. Yep. You do have an advantage, Tom, since you trap year round.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much attic crawling around you do.
I don't do any of that.
Okay. So you're trapping fur animals generally year round.
Yeah. That's basically my business is muskrats, beaver and coyotes, and then a few cage coons and moles and voles and stuff thrown in there. But and I use all the same traps that we use in fur season.
Right. So you don't have the disadvantage of the 7 to 9 month lapse that most trappers do. And it used to be trappers from the day one of season to the end of the season you trapped. So if it's 2.5 to 3 months. Now
it's like a couple week vacation or whatever.
Yeah. So you do have a big advantage of
being there all the time.
Right.
See, and that's something I discovered too. A lot of people say, well, you can't use beaver caster in the when it's 90 degrees or in the summertime. That it's only in mating season. No.
It's territorial.
I can tell you from watching beavers. There's from those that I've watched, there's not a beaver alive that will ignore the smell of beaver caster.
Yeah.
They may not get caught in your trap, but they're not going to ignore it.
I mean, all animals are territorial, but beavers are very, very territorial.
I tell that to some customers sometimes. Well, can't you take the beaver and go turn it loose? I said, no, because you may not realize this, but of all animals that I trap, beaver are the absolutely most violent towards intruders. And if you introduce a beaver from this area and there's other beavers living in that area, and this is how I give it to them. So it's what you're basically doing is going out to L.A., snagging this gang member over here and reintroducing him in his rival gang member's territory. That's what you're doing to that beaver when you do that.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to die.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you had some footage. They're tough on each other.
Oh, yeah, even
there's
family
no mercy.
members. Yeah, both coyotes and beaver. A lot of times the family members beat up on each other.
Right, right. Well, not to mention just the ethical side of it is like you're giving this person's problem to someone else.
Yeah. It's like, can I take a mouse out of my kitchen and turn it loose in yours?
So the person that has in their mind that they're
doing a good thing.
Yeah, they're doing a good thing, or they can't deal with the idea of this animal being euthanized or trapped or put down. Actually, creates way more of a problem or issue than having to deal with that.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, there's the disease thing, and it's especially true with coons. Because they're very prone to distemper and stuff, and you can't tell by looking at one if he's got distemper.
Right.
And you turn it loose somewhere in somebody else's area, or a public area or whatever, or park. Now you just infested all those. So.
Yeah. So you don't do any birds, no bats, snakes, nothing like that with ADC?
I've had people call me for snakes, but every time I go there, they're always gone. No, I don't do that. I'm not a carpenter, and basically, not to badmouth bat guys because they make a lot of big money. They're not trappers; they're carpenters. All they're doing is sealing the building up, so the bats can't get in there. I don't do that. I don't know how. I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't want to get on ladders and stuff anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there is definitely a difference between that very urban nuisance, in a very loose term, trapping, versus what you're doing.
Yeah.
So,
90% of what I don't do exclusion work either. Like I said, I'm not a carpenter. I'm not very good at fixing holes in people's houses and stuff like that. That's not my thing. But I can catch animals. So
you could go in there and bust a hole in their wall and get that coon and possum out of the wall, but you're not fitting the hole back and fixing it.
I don't get too many calls like that. I usually tell people, I tell you what, if I can set a trap outside and catch it, I'll get it removed for you. But that's, I'm not going to get no attic and climb around up on your roof and fall off or something, break my leg. I'm just not going to do that.
It's not trapping. It's not that much fun.
Yeah, it's not. It's not fun.
But, I feel bad for the guys that get in the attics in July and it's 100-something plus up there.
And it's nasty.
But on their side, I mean, they're doing
it's
very
service.
lucrative. They're doing very, very, very well. They're definitely doing a service.
Yeah, doing a service, and they're making a very good wage doing it. And that's great. We need people to do that.
Sure.
I'm just not the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had one thing I don't have on there, and I wish I did, but maybe me and Jim will be able to do some of this. I'd really like to get more bobcat stuff and maybe set some snares for coyotes, because I don't have any snare.
There you
I have
go.
snares on there for beaver, but not coyotes.
But part 2 then.
Yeah, well, I don't know how we'll do all that, but it just kind of remains to be seen where we actually end up going and stuff. But
I think the bobcats will just take a lot more time to put together, a lot more seasons.
Because it's not like you're going to have 20, 30 bobcats come to your set in one season. Just
right.
Ain't happening.
We talked about territorial, and we've talked about this before on past podcasts with others. The idea of the bobcats being territorial and actually keeping the coyotes at bay out of their areas. Yeah. So
it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Right.
And I haven't had that opportunity yet, but
I mean, it's basically based on theory. It's not based on fact or proven. That's not really proven.
Well, here's something. Another animal. I don't have any on the videos. I didn't get any good videos of it. But something that kind of surprised me. Something I do. And there's a tip for you guys out there. If you got a red fox denning underneath somebody's barn or shed or whatever, all you got to do to get rid of them is take a good quality coyote gland lure and smear it on there, and they will be gone the next day. Worked 100% of the time for me during spring and summer.
When they have pups.
Yeah, but I catch red fox on coyote gland lure all the time, and what I noticed on the video is they rub on it. They will rub on coyote gland lure. And like, why does a red fox want to have coyote gland lure smeared all over him? But they do.
So what do you offer for the reason for that?
I don't know.
No, I mean, as far as it,
they'll leave, but
they'll
then
leave
also
in the spring.
Well, the spring, I think it's because they're paranoid about the coyotes killing their pups.
Right. Okay.
But why they're rubbing on it in the fall and winter, I don't know.
I think might be just kind of that canine thing with, if
anything
there's a dead
stinks,
there's a dead skunk laying in the yard and your dog's going to roll in it, so.
Yeah. Fish.
And why is that? Why do they want to smell like a rotten fish?
Yeah.
But actually, the very first video, and I mean, it isn't on there. The very first time I ever used it, It's kind of a funny story. I was doing a beaver job and I had a crossover going from a pond to a creek. And I had a couple snares on. Every day they were knocked down. It was wet too, every day. Knocked down. I thought, maybe these are otter or something. So that's the first time I used the camera. I put the camera on there. No, it wasn't an otter, it wasn't a muskrat. It's a soft-shell turtle. A soft-shell turtle was running. I'm like,
Of all things, yeah.
Soft-shell turtle running back and forth, But that's what it was.
Yeah.
So,
Guess you never.
you never
know.
figure that out.
No.
I think we need to get a bunch of cameras, Charlie, and
Yeah.
go wild. This
Yeah,
see what we get.
you guys ought to do that.
Yeah.
But speaking of cameras, I have a article in American Trapper where I talked a little bit about my cameras, or a little bit about what I learned them, but I only used the one brand. So, but Rich Failer, the editor, he's coming out with a book, and based on the ad that he has in there that I seen, he looks like he really went in depth to study them. So that might, if somebody wants to learn about all the cameras, that might be a good place to start. I haven't seen the book.
So what brand of camera did you use, Tom?
No, I was using Cabela's, but none of the particular brands that I would recommend to you are being made anymore. When Bass Pro took it over,
Gotcha.
they quit making them. There is one that's a great camera, but has one flaw, and it's designed this way on purpose because, they're designed for deer hunters, not us, is that it will only film at night for 30 seconds at a time and then cut off, and that's pretty useless for our purposes.
For a trapper, yeah.
Yeah, even some of the ones I got that run for 180 seconds still a lot of times time out before they finally get around to getting in the trap, because they don't, 90% of the time they don't just walk up and get caught in a trap. They're out there messing around for quite some time before they actually get around to stepping on the trap.
You know what you should do? We could compile all this footage
Yeah.
and get some sort of average. How long did it take?
Yeah.
So you can get an average out of 100 coyotes.
Yeah. How long does it take?
How
the average
long does
coyote
it
to
take
get-
for that coyote from the time it's seen for it to get in that trap? That'd be kind of interesting.
So, Tom, I'm generally traps pretty close to the hole on a dirt hole set.
Yeah.
And I think Jim Tate's kind of along that same.
I'm the same. I'm there, right there with you.
Yeah.
Same thing.
The trap needs to guard the hole because what's in the hole is what
Is
the animal wants.
That's what they're there for.
Right. So it doesn't matter. These guys say, well, this, we don't have to get in all that, but so we're guarding the hole, and the idea that the coyote can look further back to see down the hole and all that is,
I remember
the trap needs to guard the hole.
That reminds me of one of the first times I ever went to 7B way back in Heflin Park. This is when I was still a teenager, right?
Yeah.
And I remember those two guys doing demo or whatever, and they were arguing. One of them said the dirt hole had to be straight up and down. The other guy wanted a 45-degree angle. And the guy that wanted the straight up and down, they was saying, just like you said, oh, no, because he can see in the hole, and he won't go after it. You got to have it straight up and down so he'll walk up to it. And I remember, some reason I remember that little argument. It's like, now that I know a lot more, both of them are wrong.
Yeah.
But
You remember who that was by chance?
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember who gave demos back then. That's been a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been. I know I can tell you the names of guys, but I don't remember if it was them or not.
Right,
Like
right.
Gary Law, you knew
Sure.
him.
Yeah.
He was always there, and a few other guys. But yeah, those were the first conventions I'd ever been to. That's the first time I ever seen anybody do a dirt hole demo.
Yeah.
Was down there.
Yeah. I think you talked about that in the
Yeah.
past podcast.
Yeah,
But yeah, it
probably
was
did, yeah.
that was the introduction that most of us had to a trappers convention. Certainly here in Central Indiana
yeah,
was going to the 7B.
Yeah, those were good times.
Yeah.
I still think we should do a little throwback Chapter 7B FTA meeting there for good times.
Yeah.
More or less just to hang out and trade stories.
But
Nothing.
you probably don't remember me, but I remember you, and remember Jim Mahoney. All the other, Reggie Lloyd. I'd seen Reggie down there at the FTA convention. I said, "Yeah, I remember you from all the way back to 7B," and he just cracked up laughing.
Yeah, well, his dad actually used to come and hang out back
Did
then
he?
too.
Yeah.
I'm very certain of that. I guess I need to ask him to be sure, but I'm pretty sure his dad used to come and hang
Yeah.
out with that.
But so yeah, that's the first place. You guys know that I kind of do the mountain man stuff, whatever. That's the first place I ever seen anybody dress up in mountain man clothes and shoot muzzle loaders too. You know how they did that in the back.
Yep.
That's the first place I ever saw that.
And you were hooked.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Well, and I think that's the first place. I know it is. It's the first place I ever saw it. They had some guys came in, and they typically the convention, the get together, convention, rendezvous, whatever we want to call it, was Saturday, and it would stay overnight, and then Sunday about noon or 2 o'clock it would be over.
Off.
So we got, and I think these guys actually came in on Friday, and they set up a teepee. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I distinctly remember they had this like piece of bacon, you know, like before, like a slab bacon or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
and they had it
pork or whatever.
Yeah, they had it pulled up to the top of the teepee in the smoke. You know, they're smoking this bacon, you know. So
yeah,
that still sticks in my mind.
When was the date on this year?
It had to be 75, 76, something like that.
That's even before me. First one I ever went to was 81.
Okay.
That was when I first.
Because I was still in high school. I was still in high school. I graduated in 76. I'm a little older than you, but
okay, yeah.
I was not born.
Yeah, not even thought about it yet. No.
Nope.
What year did you graduate?
82.
Okay, so you're 6 years.
But but I got hooked down there on, you know, and I've been trying, you know, like I said, I've been doing every convention I could get to ever since then.
Yeah.
While we're on conventions, I kind of wanted to bring it up on this podcast since we just got back from the FTA, and I don't know if you want to call it a recap or what, but just kind of want to fill in people that didn't make it. Overall, Charlie, what would you say about the convention?
Good convention. I thought that the demo lineup was good. They had you know, good demo lineup. They had demos on the hour every hour from 8 to 4. You know, they didn't run back-to-back demos like you sometimes see, or like what we may do here for the 7B. But you know, obviously the supply dealers were there, and
it's definitely a good time. I had a real good time there. And maybe he's listening out there. I don't know, but I still haven't figured out who bought my dinner that one night. Maybe he's out there. If you're out there, thanks.
I bet Jim had something to do with that.
I don't know, but I never confirmed any of it for sure, you know.
Well, this is the first convention that we've been to. Well, you guys did go to the Indiana State last year, but the first convention that I've been to since October of 2019.
Yep.
You know, because almost all of them were canceled last year. So I think in that respect, and there were people that came by the booth. I remember one woman distinctly, and some others mentioned it too, that she was like, "This is just she was just so glad to be able to go out and do something.
Oh,
and
yeah,
just so glad to be there.
Oh yeah,
you know, and see people and talk to people again. And I don't know that she was necessarily a trapper. Probably her husband was.
Yeah,
but she was just mentioned that she was so appreciative of being able to do that again. Yeah. You know,
well, I actually had some, and this is great, and this is what I liked. Part of doing a video here that I really like. I had guys coming in there that they bought it one day and must have lived locally because watched part of it and come back and really I got real good reviews. Everybody that's ever watched it so far thinks it's great, and they're asking me questions and stuff. That was great. I love doing that.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of guys come in from the videos I put on the Catch Circle.
Yeah.
They sit down there with me and ask me about them and all that kind of stuff. That's really cool too. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah. Get that follow up, and what we were running into is they would be camping at the convention, and they would go watch the DVD in their camper or or maybe even a hotel room on their computer or something,
and then come back.
Yeah, come back the next day and ask questions or say, "Hey, I watched that. I really enjoyed it, or learned a lot, or whatever."
But yeah, so if you have watch the DVD and you're going to be at the NTA convention or Michigan convention or Indiana or I'll be there. You know, ask me, interrogate me all you want. I'd like to talk about that stuff.
Then you have to buy him dinner.
yeah. But you don't. But I can't know who it is. It's a secret. You know?
So I'd say the FTA was a good convention. You know, like always, you always want more attendance, but it's so early in the year. Weather-wise, it was a little warm. But what could you expect? We had a little bit of rain on that Saturday that kind of might have pushed a couple people away, but overall, it was a good time and good to see everyone.
Yeah.
Definitely get out to Iowa if you can at the NTA. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
I
got to visit with I've known Mike Marchuka a long time, and we've been real close friends for a long time. That was part of, if he's listening to this, don't get a big head, Mike. But that was probably probably the highlight for me, just being able to sit down and just brainstorm with Mike. Because I don't know if you've talked to him a whole lot, but he's one of these guys that just has an absolute thirst for knowledge, and you can talk to him for hours and never get bored because we're talking strategy or asking this question or what do you think of that? You know, I told you while we were at he was standing there when we were at the convention, said you need to do a podcast with him. You know.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
And we would, definitely. And we've mentioned we should probably fill some people in. We used the word or name Jim Tate on here. It's Tom's trapping buddy. They go down south and trap together, and he also uses this lure. We'll probably have Tate on here at some point as well. We've talked about it. So.
He makes wolf and bait and lure.
Right. Yeah. Great guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Always got a cowboy hat on, one tall guy. So yeah.
Yep. He was there. Of course, he'll be at the NTA too. Me and him are sharing booths, so we're there together. So I'll actually be in his booth. So that's how you can find me. Just look for Jim Tate's booth, and that's where I'll be. But
and that that's only like what?
About 3 weeks away, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be going on 3 weeks from now. So yeah. So
time flies. It's July already.
Maybe from the time this video or this podcast comes out, it'll be 2.5 weeks away. So yeah, it's
but yeah. So anyway, like I said, I've got all good reviews from it, and some of them I sent out to guys that already knew before I even made it. They was waiting on me to get it to them, So I mailed before I even had it for sale. I was letting them guys watch it, like Marchuka. He watched it twice. And that's saying a lot because it's 5 hours long. but I got it. While I was down there, I haven't heard back from some of the people. I gave one to, Jerry Ann and the fur bear biologist and conservation officer buddy I knew that was down there. People like that, I've given some too, just because I can. It's my video and do what I want. No,
yep.
But yeah, so. But yeah, I know I'm not, big famous trapper that's known all over the world, and that's what sells videos more than anything else probably. But there's a lot of people out there, and that they don't make videos, they don't make lure, they don't do anything, but they're just as good at trappers as all those famous guys.
Oh,
maybe even better.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some out there that.
I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I know guys that are.
Well, they've just got that day in, day out, year-round practical experience that you can't have unless you do that.
And they just don't talk about it. They are what they are.
Yeah.
Oh, I should say also at the convention, and this is only good at the conventions. The price of it, the normal price is $39.95, but at conventions it's $35. But there's one catch: you got to be a member of a trapping organization to get that price. If you can prove you're a member, it doesn't matter which one, then I'll give it to you for $35. And if if you don't have enough money to get the video and join the Trappers Association. That's more important than buying the video.
Right.
But yeah, I'm gonna give that deal to anybody shows up at a convention and you're a member. I'll give it to you for $35 instead of $39.
Yep.
So. Except Justin, I'm going to charge him $50.
Well, I was, since I helped edit it, I was hoping to have you sign one for me.
Oh, I can do that. The problem is I don't know how to write.
If you do that, I'll get you.
That's why he needs videos, because he just needs pictures.
I don't know how to read and write. Is that really my name on there? Is that how my name's spelled?
Okay. Well,
so you'll be at NTA, and then you're going to Michigan. You remember the dates for Michigan and where it's at in Michigan?
It's in Everett.
Okay.
I think it's like whatever the weekend closest to the 24th is.
Let me look here. I got it right here.
I know we actually got World Taxidermy Competition about that same time, and that's the reason we're not going to be up there.
Me and Jim might go to Ohio.
The weekend of the 21st.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Saturday.
Jim and I might go to Ohio, but I haven't got I've tried to get a hold. So far, I haven't heard back from those guys, to find out what booth space is or whatever, but.
Yeah,
but it's only about 3.5 hours from me, so I might go there. And then definitely be at the Indiana State and down here at 7B. I'm doing a demo at Michigan, that's Everett, Michigan. I'm doing a beaver demo for them up there, and I do demos here, whatever you guys want me to do here too.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to do a demo at ISJ about the cameras themselves.
and not the cameras, but the stuff that I used, the mounting brackets and, a little bit of advice on how to place them and the angles, stuff like that. I thought might be interesting for anybody who wants to know that.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Right, And it took me that first year. It was a challenge, trying to get good video, especially beaver, because they don't tend to trip the motion detector near as easy because they're down in the water, and there's not as much of a silhouette or whatever. Where you got a coyote out there bouncing across the bean field, it kicks on a lot better.
Right.
Whereas a beaver, it's harder for it to pick that up.
Right.
So it was a learning curve for me to figure out how to get footage of them. And basically, the biggest thing was I just wasn't close enough.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get in there 5 or 10 feet, or it's if it's too far away, you're not going to get
Right.
useful footage. And it might come on, but you're not going to be able to see what's going on.
Right.
But
Good deal. You guys got any concluders before we sign off on this? It was good chatting with you. I like talking trapping, especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
Gets you kind of fired up.
I appreciate you doing it, Tom, because not a lot of people have done what you just did,
Yeah.
or what you and the years that you put into that. So certainly appreciate you putting that together and for trappers to learn off of. So
should say, it's available here at Hoosier Trapper Supply.
right.
Yep.
And you can order it from me directly. I guess I should say, is my address on it? I only got to read that. That's not actually on there. But no, you can get a hold of me on Facebook if you're on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, and sell it to you that way.
All right.
All right.
Sounds
Cool.
good. We'll catch you guys on the next one, and do us a favor, tell your friend, and share the podcast with whoever. Let's grow this thing as big as we can possibly get it.
Right. And join a trappers organization.
Yeah,
And join up.
That's number
yes.
one there. Join the trappers. Doesn't matter which one, just join one.
So, all right. Bye.